Welcome to Whitetail Rendezvous Podcast. This is Bruce Hutchin, host and executive producer. Each week you will hear tips, techniques, strategies, and personal stories from some of the best and funniest whitetail hunters in North America. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you do, tell a friend on social media. If not, tell me and I'll make it better. Thanks for listening, folks. This is Whitetail Rendezvous Podcast 390. Welcome to another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous. This is your host, Bruce Hutchin, heading down to Arizona, and we're going to talk to a transplant from Long Island, New York, kind of my old stomping grounds. His name is John Stallone. Now, John has done tremendous things in the outdoor industry. He's a writer. He's been a contributor to Tom Miranda's book, Rut Hunters. He's been on Common TV. He has his own The Hunting Channel. He's got his own podcast called Interviews with the Masters. He's got some great deer stories, and he's going to share one about the swamp donkey that he took in eastern New York, actually eastern Long Island, outside of Iceland. Having said all that, John knows a lot about hunting that prepares you to be a hunter. What does he do? He hunts for all the tools, all the necessary information to get him the best hunter he can be in the field. He's going to share all that with you today, so listen up, folks. It's going to be a great show. Welcome to an exciting interview. I don't say that a lot, but it is exciting. And it's a privilege to have John Stallone on. Who is John Stallone? Well, he's host of Days in the Wild TV. Also, Interview with the Hunting Masters podcast. John, welcome to the show.
How you doing, Bruce?
Well, I'm excited to have you on because you've done so much ever since you left. What was it, New Jersey or Massachusetts?
New York.
It was New York, and you kind of headed west, and I did too, and I never looked back. So, how did you get out west?
I really didn't have much of a choice. I was 16 when my parents moved me out to Arizona. They were just searching for a better quality of life with not such a high cost of living. And I had a cousin that already had moved out here, and so it was, seemed like a likely move to come out here. Everybody was going to Florida at the time, so it was just one of those things.
Yeah, and so you're 16. You're coming out of New York City. Were you in the boroughs of New York, or were you upstate? Where were you?
At the time, I lived in Long Island. I was born in Brooklyn. I lived in Brooklyn until I was about 8, and then from 8 to 16, I lived out in West Islip. Yeah, which is Suffolk County.
Yeah, in the warm-up or last time we chat, I came from Massapequa, Long Island, right, which is,
very close.
Yeah, very close. So, folks, you're getting two New Yorkers. John sounds like a New Yorker. I don't. I've been gone for way too long. You think about how we get started, and there you are, 16 years old in Arizona. What trip?
Hey, Bruce, I'm gonna put you on hold for 1 second. I'm just gonna shut my dogs up because I
hear them. That's good.
Hold on 1 second.
Real people in real places, folks. And I'm gonna give a shout out right now to Trees and Camo. And Kenny Maynard just sent me a T-shirt from Warriors in the Woods, and he's supporting that. So some props to Kenny Maynard. And
all right, Warriors sorry about
in the
that.
Woods. And John's back, so I'm gonna cut that little promo off. And thanks so much to Trees and Camo to supporting a lot of our veterans throughout North America. Let's get back with John Stallone. And John, so there you are in Arizona. I don't know how much hunting you did in Islip, maybe some duck hunting, maybe some fishing, stripers and blues, and maybe some, brook trout or trout fishing. But, where did this hunting, passion come from?
My dad and my uncles, really, I started really, really young. I started accompanying them in the field, from like 4 years of age. My dad actually helped me made me hold his gun with him when he shot a deer. Like I was like five years old. Admittedly, it probably wasn't the smartest thing to do because I made me gun shy for a long time because it was a Marlin 35 and it kicked like a mule. So, that's kind of rough on a little kid. I don't recommend that. But despite that incident, I'd had hunted my whole life. And in Long Island, I bow hunted for deer. and still do to this day.
Now it's kind of changed since I lived out there because I remember I lived on the Great South Bay and we could go out duck hunting, just basically out our back doors and jump into skiffs and go lay out on the islands and see what happens. Um, I never saw a deer in New York, and even on some of the North Shore estates or whatever you'd go visit, Sycamore
Really?
Hill. Yeah, Sycamore Hill. I just never did, and
Oh, there's so many, and the population's gotten, it's exploded since I was a kid. But yeah, when I was a kid, we used to go to Fire Island and go to Robin Moses Beach, and there's deer all over the place. But out east in the Hamptons, there's always been deer. All the way out to Montauk was a great place to go hunting. It still is to this day. I mean, as long as you can, it's kind of you have to fight tooth and nail to get on the public ground. It's first come, first serve, and there's guys, camping out at 3 o'clock in the morning, waiting to get out of their trucks. So it's definitely a very competitive, high pressure area to hunt, but there's a lot of deer.
yeah, and I just think back to my high school days at Massapequa, and then I worked as a lifeguard at Tobay. Even on Tobay, the Jones Beach, from all the way, I can't remember the inlet close to the Bronx or whatever it was. I can't just think of it, but all the way out to Fire Island, we used to fish all the time, and then we used to surf at ditch plains, and then we used to, either surf. If the surf wasn't really good, then we go fishing. If the water was completely flat, then we'd go spear fishing. So it was a great life, and I just never heard about, we had the ducks and stuff, but I never heard about whitetail hunting. And this is back in the '60s, so maybe
Okay.
there weren't a lot of guys doing it at that time. I'm just trying to think, why didn't know deer were there? Because I didn't know deer were there, and I didn't see my first buck till 1966 out in Wisconsin.
Gotcha.
So when you look at that, so we're hunting deer in New Jersey. Now we're out in Arizona, and then your career has just blown up, and we'll talk about that. The accolades in a little bit, but why did that happen?
Um, Really, it was just a product of my ambition, I think. I mean, I didn't just like fall into it. It's well, I guess when I started, I kind of fell into it. I had shot a few archery tournaments and stuff like that, and kind of got some recognition that way, and got a free bow, from a local archery shop, and was put on their shooting staff, and that's kind of what kickstarted it all. And then, just like anything else, you get locally famous, within your peer group, and people start recognizing that you're, killing a lot of bucks and doing stuff that they're not doing. So they start coming to you, and I was always want to share my knowledge or my experiences with people. So it just kind of grew from there. I saw the business end of it in like 2004 when I started the Hunting Channel online. That kind of came out of a want to see. At the time, I was living here in Arizona. I couldn't watch hunting TV on a regular basis because I had Cox Cable, and the only people that had, at the time, it was like Versus TV, and then you got a little bit on Saturday mornings from Fox Sports or ESPN. So I wanted to develop something that was, 24/7 hunting, and that's why I brought it online. We were the first online, TV show network. I think not just in hunting, but all around. And I might be wrong on that, but as for sure hunting, there's been a lot that came after us, but we've been the longest running, and we were the biggest at one point. I don't know if we are anymore, but yeah, so that's kind of where the business end came from that. And, just out of working to promote that, as a byproduct, I promoted myself, and I started my own TV show 13 years ago, and again was used as was a tool to try to promote the hunting channel online, and that became bigger than the hunting channel itself at one point, and just kind of spiraled from there.
Why don't we give the listeners a list of where they should go to see the best of John Stallone?
Honestly, probably the best places to find a lot of my work is on YouTube. It's the only free place that you can go look at it. Yeah, so it's just John Stallone. If you type in John Stallone in your search bar in YouTube, you should find me pretty easily. There's a number of different full episodes on there. A lot of my video tips are on there. My reviews are on there. Go there and give it a subscribe, and you'll get all my new stuff as it comes out.
And reading down your program now, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's viewed over 4 million people monthly. Now, is that the YouTube channel? Is that the TV channel? Help me understand so we can guide the people to that.
That is across all my videos and across all the platforms that I'm on. So my show is syndicated. A lot of my tips and video tactics and reviews are syndicated. So on a month-to-month basis across all of that, I get about 4 million views across that. So it's not just, I put one video up and it gets 4 million views that month, because that would be that'd be almost unheard of.
Well, Jay Scott gets 10,000 a month. I mean, a day.
Yeah.
You know Jay with outdoor.
Yep. Yeah. I know him very well, but he 10,000 a day, or 10,000 a show. I think he gets. I don't know if he gets 10,000 in a day, but it's still a far cry from 4 million.
Yeah. Well, no, because he does a million, and he's been mentoring me and helping me, grow Whitetail Rendezvous and looking into our media group. And, I'm doing some writing. I wrote for Go Hunt and did some writing for them. And that's kind of sort of where we're going, with the podcast is, keeping good people like you, getting interesting people on you, and then developing some content, and then getting out there. And it's just this interesting journey. I guess that's the best thing I can say.
Yeah, for sure.
Because it hasn't, and I'll share this. Just because you're a podcaster, just because you're a writer, just because you have a hunting channel, doesn't mean you're going to make a whole lot of money, because it's a business. And just spend a couple minutes on, for the people saying, oh man, I want to be the next John Stallone, or I want to do this. 4 million of anything's a lot, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
And, they get all glassy eyed and deer in the headlights, but give them some reality. Let's have a dose of reality.
A dose of reality is 90% of the people on TV don't make money. They barely break even. It's a really crappy business model, and it's crappy business model because of the networks. There are guys that do make money, but mostly everybody has a day job also. I myself have a day job. I build and remodel swimming pools, and we service swimming pools here in Arizona. And if I didn't have that, I wouldn't be able to feed my family. Because the reality of it is, I'll make $50,000-$60,000 a year in hunting, and I'll spend $50,000-$60,000 a year in hunting. So it's one of those things. I always tell people, if you want to hunt more, find a job or a career like I've done that gives you passive income and gives you the freedom to do what you want, and a salary that can support your habits. So, that being said, don't want to crush anybody's hopes and dreams. In this day with the social media and internet being the way it is, um, everybody's trying to be famous. Everybody's trying to be recognized, even if they don't have anything. Um, and it's kind of propelled the industry in a lot of ways, which is great. But in a lot of ways, it's also watered down. Um, so me making a post or something on Facebook holds a lot less weight now because of the way things are. Because everybody's just hitting like and commenting. Not everybody, I shouldn't say everybody. A lot of people are doing that just so they can further along their career, so to speak. Everybody wants to be a pro staff and so on and so forth. And that's great. In a lot of ways, like I said, it's helped the industry, but at the same time, it's kind of it's hurt it a little bit too. It's created a lot of keyboard experts and a lot of things where people can't really trust where their info is coming from.
Yeah, and that's interesting. I had two guys last week, in fact, share with me. One was Garrett Rowe from Heads Up Decoy out in Kansas. Hey, Kansas. And shout out for you, Derek. I mean, Garrett. And, he said one thing he likes about Whitetail Rendezvous, and I'm going to ask you to, throw in your 2 cents. He said it's about real people in real places. And there's really not a lot of hype that comes out of this because, one, at my age, I've been blessed, fortunate to hunt, all over North America. And so I'm looking now, okay, how can I bring the knowledge from John Stallone? How can I get that to the people? How can I give them some insights, what it takes to be in the industry? And we'll talk about whitetail hunting in a little bit. But when you look at that, yeah, I've got to make some money in this because I've worked 2 years and we're at the point now I've got enough recognition and stuff. I think that will happen in the next 6 months. At least I'm hoping for it because I want to go to Africa, John. I really do. I don't know if you've been to Africa.
No, I have not.
Because that's a 10 grand bill at least.
Oh, at the very least. That's before you start shipping heads back over and everything else. Yeah.
Oh, and I've got a situation. I know where my kudu's going, and I know where my Cape Buffalo is going.
You guys spot picked out for it already?
I do. I actually do, and my sheep and my mountain goat. The two white critters. They're up in the wall already, and I got a place left and right of them for the kudu and the Cape Buffalo.
Nice.
And my whitetails are down in the antelope, and all the rest are down in the rec room. But my wife says, you only got a couple more places.
Yeah. My wife keeps threatening me with getting a bigger house. It's like, if you want to put more mounts in here, we need a bigger house.
Yeah, and guys have trophy rooms, and we know all about that. I've seen some ungodly trophy rooms. It's big. Trophy room's bigger than the guy's house, but it's got full mount giraffes.
Yeah, it's crazy.
All that kind of. So we're digressing, but let's switch it back to whitetails and talk about your whitetail slam. What does that mean? How long did it take to do it, and where'd you hunt them?
Well, I've hunted at least 15 different states, or at least harvested whitetail in at least 15 different states. The whitetail slam biologists got together, and the QDMA guys got together, and they put together a map of where 8 subspecies of whitetail live, and a slam is, if you get 4 of those, it's a slam. If you get all 8, it's a super slam. I have 6 of the 8 right now. I got 7. I just haven't entered the one that I have already. I'm missing both Florida deer, to be honest with you. I need a Seminole and the Gulf Coast. Actually, no. I'm sorry. I don't need a Gulf Coast deer. I got that in January. So yes, I have 7. I shot.
Now, is there Keys deer? Can you hunt Keys deer down in Florida?
No, you cannot.
They exist though.
Yes,
right?
they do. But yeah, there's no hunting season for them. They're protected. So.
So and then So let's just go through the eight. So you have the whitetails up in Maine. Is that a subspecies?
Yeah, there's as a matter of fact, I'll pull up the map real quick. So
Sure.
it's let's see here. Basically, you got your Coues deer,
That's in Arizona.
Arizona, New Mexico, and a little piece of Texas. And sorry, that was loud. You have your northern, which is like your New York, Michigan, Wisconsin. You have the Dakota whitetail, which is like Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota. You have the southeastern whitetail, which is like Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Kentucky, Tennessee. The Gulf Coast, which is like Louisiana, part of Florida, basically the whole rim of the Gulf Coast right there. And then you got your South Central Plains, which is like Texas, Oklahoma. What else is Arkansas, I think, in there? And then you got the northwestern whitetail, which is like Oregon and Idaho and Washington, and it goes up into the channel. No,
they call it different than the blacktail.
No, this is the whitetail that occupy that. The
Okay.
blacktail are actually or blacktail. It's a different deer completely. Blacktail are more closely related to mule deer.
Okay, so the different genus, species, phylum,
Yep.
all that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Absolutely. So yeah, that's the.
I got 7. Did I miss one?
Oh, maybe, I don't know. I'm.
How about a Canadian buck?
Oh, and then the other one in Florida. Yeah, Canadian bucks are in that Dakota.
Okay.
Well, it's not true. I mean, if you get them in like Ontario and stuff, they're part of that northeastern, North Woodlands whitetail. There's like the New York and Michigan and stuff like that. And then the last is the Seminole buck, which is the rest of Florida. That's not on the Gulf Coast.
Right.
So yeah.
Wow, that the guy could take a lifetime, but with
you could do that in a year
realistic
if you really
plan.
wanted to with a realistic plan. Yeah.
If you had the right guides, I don't know if it'd be hard doing it DIY in a year, unless you really knew a lot of people, because you're running and gunning.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, you're in your car. Start in Seattle, Spokane, I guess up in the Pacific Northwest, and just head east.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, if you look at it, you could almost hunt the rut from October all the way through to like February. If you play your cards right and plan it right, you can hunt the rut on all those species from October to February. There's actually deer in Florida that begin rutting in like July or something crazy like that. They got a very broad spectrum of rut down there. But anyhow, the aside from the one I shot in Texas, because there's almost no public land in Texas. It was all DIY and on public lands. So
people, it is possible.
Yep.
There is enough public land. I've spent some time. I live in Colorado. I've spent some time starting to know some ranchers in Kansas, western Kansas, and the deer are there. And this is public land. This isn't going on the guy's ranch and paying him a couple bucks for leasing. This is public land, hunting. So, and I know Wisconsin has tons of it. I know Iowa has tons with it. I have not hunted Illinois, so I can't speak to that.
Illinois has quite a bit. A lot of WMAs.
And you talk about Missouri. So if you're serious about this and say, hey, I have the time and I can hunt here to go back to work, hunt here, because in the Midwest you can get any place pretty much overnight.
Mm-hmm.
You really can. Out west it's a little bit different. Now, what do they call the Colorado bucks? Is that out of Dakota?
Colorado has actually got technically 3 of the subspecies, depending on where you're at. If you're in the southeastern part of the state. You're part of that
Uh-huh.
Central Plains. The
Okay.
North Central gets that Dakota buck, and then the northwest corner is that um, the northwestern whitetail.
Yeah, and just 2 cents on that. Colorado, isn't a traditional whitetail space, and they just pioneer, up the drainages. And we have whitetails over in Buena Vista, which sits about 8,000 feet, and they came up the Arkansas River because
Mm-hmm.
up by Libbville, that's the headwaters of the Arkansas, and so we have whitetails there, and the DNR is looking, okay, if you want to hunt whitetails, hunt all you want, especially west of I-25, which goes north to south throughout the whole state. So there's plenty. What I'm saying, folks, there's plenty of opportunity to hunt whitetails on public ground in Colorado. In certain places, Eastern Plains along the Arkansas, it's gonna be tough. Same
Mm-hmm.
thing the North Platte. There's some good. I used to hunt that public land up just below Sterling or northeast of Sterling. But anyway, it can be done. And is this part of the Whitetail Hunter's Blueprint, one of your books?
I don't talk about the slam very much. Actually, I wrote it before the slam actually came out. So, yeah, the Whitetail Hunter's Blueprint is just that. It kind of gives you a blueprint to develop your own, bag of tricks, your bag of tools. And I designed it so that a guy can go anywhere in the United States and apply the tools and harvest a whitetail. So, yeah, we gave a money back guarantee on that for a long time, where if you didn't feel like you learned something, you could send it back and get a full refund.
So saying that, where did they get that book? On Amazon, or did they just get it off your website?
Yeah, you can get it on Amazon. It's only available on Amazon as a Kindle book or a downloadable book. It's an ebook. You could go to the whitetailhuntersblueprint.com and you can buy it straight from the website as well. There are no hard copies left. I sold out of them like several years ago, and I never reprinted them. Just because sales had dwindled towards the end there. It was real popular for like the first 5 years, but I think people stopped reading. I think people just want to see videos and listen to things. I thought about putting it as an audiobook. I felt like if I did that, it would definitely get some more traction. But there was a time we were, selling 5,000 copies a year. So
Sure. And what's the cost of it on digital?
I believe it's $9.
Okay.
So it's pretty expensive.
And say, take 3 things out of that book that everybody, no matter where they're hunting whitetails, should know.
Well, I'm a big proponent of scent control, and I go heavy into that. And living it as a lifestyle, so to speak. So that's definitely something. Learning how to look at a map and read topography and vegetation type and stuff like that you're looking at if you're looking at an aerial, and how to decipher where is a good spot to hang stands or a good spot for, a ambush and so on and so forth. That's something I go over extensively. And I think it's one of the biggest keys to being successful throughout the United States, and not just area specific. And lastly, vocalizations, deer vocalizations and deer behavior. There's a lot of stuff that we go over in that book, and learning that, and I feel is a guy who knows his adversary better than the next guy is going to be the guy that's going to, be more more successful. So, we're, even though whitetail's not your enemy, but it's
Yes, he is.
know your enemy.
Yes, he is.
Know your enemy. Phil.
I've had one buck kick my, you know what, so many times, and I'm so close. And maybe this is year he'll make a mistake because he's getting older.
Yeah.
He's going to be 6.5 years old this year.
Wow.
And I always see him, but I don't see him where I can, harvest them. And, this isn't rifle hunting. This is bow hunting. And, I've done a lot of different things, but we're building a microplot. And so this is the last place. And if I don't get him here, I probably never will.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's perfect. Hey, in your bio, there was a mighty fine, I think it's 10 point you send me a picture of, and let me get up here and take a look at that. It wasn't your Ibex. It was one in the woods. Looks like you're in hardwoods. Looks like a really big 8 point, and obviously smiling, but really long tines. And I love long tines,
Oh, that's probably Swamp Donkey.
What's the story about him?
That's a buck I hunted for 4 years. I just harvested him this October, or this past October. And that's a Long Island buck, actually.
Wow.
Yeah, I hunted him for 4 years. Had a lot of interaction with him, and spent a lot of time trying to figure him out, just like your 6.5-year-old deer. I actually, the story will be coming out in Peterson's bow hunting here shortly, I think in the next month or two. So you guys keep an eye out for that. And I'll eventually release a video on it. So, but yeah, it's just one of those bucks, he had my number for a number of years, and I eventually figured him out and got him killed. So
now that buck, you've been watching him, hunting him, trying to sort it out. Now, did you kill him in the first sit on that stand that you finally closed the deal?
Yes, I did.
How did I know that? Talk to people about that, because that is so critical, because you finally figured him out, got in there, set up your stand, and you were going to be up close and personal. You knew that. There wasn't any decision.
Right.
I mean, you knew 100% that he's going to come through there. But on the backside of that, when you do that, when you get so close, that might be your only shot. I'm hypothesizing here. So tell us about that stand and setup, and why just dissect that final, opportunity.
Yeah, well, so crazy thing is, I had all this intel on him, between, I didn't really run trail cameras over there because, I did a select few, but trail cameras in New York don't last very long if you leave them out there. So they get stolen, they get messed with very, very quickly. But like I said, I had 4 years to kind of figure them out, and I was heading in to set up my stand, and I made a discovery. I saw this one rub, and it was just inside the brush line, and so I kind of picked up my binos and I looked down through the brush. I didn't want to go over there because I didn't want to spread my scent around, and I could see this little faint trail through the brush, and periodically every like 10 yards there was another rub, and the trees were broke over, so I knew it wasn't a small buck, and I just assumed that it was him, just given what I knew what was in the area. And I made an adjustment. I moved my stand over, and it wasn't very much. It was like 15 yards, if that, from where I was gonna be. But that little movement of where I moved my stand to allowed me to see down this one little corridor that I wouldn't have been able to see from my other stand. And really that's what got him killed, because that I knew he was coming out to that area, but he would always hang up in, in the dark. And the other thing about it I figured out too was that if I try to go in there in the morning, I'd bust them out. And, I'd bust deer out. I don't know if he was in there or not. But I looked at the maps. I looked at, moon phase and weather, and everything told me to not go in the morning and go set up and hunt them from 10 to 2. And that's what I did. I sat in there, got set up at like 10 o'clock in the morning, and then about I don't know, maybe 45 minutes into it, I shot him.
So it was during the rut period?
No.
So he'd be moving midday?
No. It was.
Tell me about that.
It's pre-rut. So we had gotten a rain. This is what made me decide to hunt. One of the things that made we had gotten rain the day before, and I knew that meant he was going to be, and it rained all the way to the morning. I knew that meant he was going to get out and freshen up all his scrapes. Because deer do that. You get a rain, 9 times out of 10, the buck's going to go back to his primary scrapes and freshen them back up. And that's what he was on. He was on a mission. I could see him coming down. He'd stop at every scrape that he had, on that trail and freshen them up. And I knew it was a matter of time before he got to the one that I was sitting over. And, yeah.
So you were on top of a scrape that had worked, plus you got the rud lines. Were they heading towards his feeding area or towards his bedding area? Where was his rub lines pointing that he was going?
I was, it was heading towards his bedding. And I basically was set up between 2 bedding areas. It's just a travel corridor that's between 2 swamps. He's not in there often. He's just in there to move back and forth. And I think from what I figured out is he would go bed in the morning, right at first light, he'd go bed down, and then he'd get back up, mill around a little bit, go bed down, and then come back out in the afternoon or late afternoon, early evening. So, he was not the kind of buck that would just go lay in one spot all day. He seemed to have multiple bed sites and at least move twice a day. So that's why I made the decision to hunt him like I did.
So from bedding to bedding area is a quarter mile, 200 yards, 100 yards?
Oh, jeez. Yeah, maybe 200 yards max. Yeah, it's not very big. It's a pretty small area. I want to say his whole core area was probably, we're talking 20 acres maybe.
Surrounded by Suburban?
Yep, surrounded by houses and houses and stores. That's how Long Island is, though. Yeah.
Well, I get it. No, I do get that. Yeah. So I had another guy outside Milwaukee, Tyler, Median, and he hunts 20 acres also. And, it's subdivision. And then in Wisconsin, there might be some cornfields or there might be some beans. And then there'll be more subdivision. And the trails just follow the creeks or as you said, the terrain, because sometimes if there's swales or anything, they just, nobody plants in there or builds around there. And so they just follow those terrains, fence lines and stuff like that. And, he shot some very nice bucks on that 20 acres. And so the point is that I'm bringing up, folks, just because you say, oh, I need a big farm. No, you don't. You just need the right place with deer. So talk to us about how you find that place.
I look for the places where, especially in battle zones like New York, where there's a lot of hunters per acreage, and even more so in Long Island. I look for those places that people wouldn't think to hunt in. people always say try to get away from people, get away from other hunters, and that's great. But you talk about they think about that in looking for the deepest, nastiest stuff when you can actually kill a buck right there where the parking lot is, because everybody gets out of their truck in the morning at the parking lot and they all traipse into the woods, with their flashlights and whatnot, and all those bucks move to that little 1 acre tract of trees that's right by the parking lot. So it's just kind of thinking outside the box and, looking at things from perspective, where would I go to hide, if I could. And then that's what they do. I mean, whitetail, they'll live underneath your deck if they had to. They're smart. They'll find that little group of trees that nobody passes by or you wouldn't think to look in, and then once you get to those spots, then you look for everything else. Then everything goes back to what you do when you're out in the bigger tracts of land or whatever. I've made my bones doing that in New York. I mean, the majority of my whitetail I've killed have been from Long Island or upstate, but the majority of those whitetail were all killed on 10 acres or less. So
I hope everybody's taking notes because, just the little bits and pieces. I love what he said about everybody comes to the parking lot. I've done that in Wisconsin, and I was never hunted this before, and I'm hunting with a local guy. He says, okay, we're going to sit here, have our coffee. Everybody's going to pull in, slam the doors. Radios are going on, blah, 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 blah. And then all of a sudden it's going to get quiet. You see that tree over there, not even a quarter mile, 200 yards. He said, you're going to sit there because you see how that swale comes up out of the marsh, and then there's some trees. It gets thicker, thicker, thicker. It's edge cover. And then I'm going to go over here because there's a good solid patch of woods, and this trail's right in the middle because they'll loop around. They'll do circles because the people are pushing them out, and they'll go out to the sides, and then they'll loop back around and come in behind them. They won't leave that area per se, unless somebody jumps them and kicks them across the road.
Right.
And I've, never hunting before, using his local now. It's sitting, in a tree stand that we just put up that day. And, I've seen deer. I've seen bucks. I didn't shoot one, but I did see them. I saw a lot of deer. I actually saw does, and I saw, 2.5, 1.5, 2.5 year bucks. And then I saw one, potential 3.5-year-old buck. And I chose not to shoot him, but it was just amazing because when the sun comes up and everything starts, the birds are chirping, the squirrels are racing around, everybody's working. All of a sudden you'll hear, just a little rustling, and you know exactly what's happening. And all the hunters that come back out at the end of the day, man, I didn't see anything. Mm-hmm. And you just laugh. I mean, that's my experience. And it sounds like you have exactly the same experience.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And there's a lot more to that too. I think guys don't pay attention to the wind when they're approaching. I think again, people take the painstaking measures that I take to stay scent free and to eliminate my scent. Noise approaching the wood, hanging your stand. I mean, guys that are really serious about everything, try to silence everything and try to make things as low impact as possible. I tell this story often. I used to go hunt on this, it was private land in Illinois. It was basically what they call like a semi-guided hunt. And really what that meant is that they gave you a place to stay and they fed you, and they handed you a map to one of them to your property. So I went there for a couple of years, and we'd come back every day and put the video that we take up on a big screen so all the guys in the lodge could see. There was like 30, 40 other people hunting it. It was a big operation. There a lot of different land that they had leased and whatnot for guys to hunt on. And everybody would be like, "Oh, you guys give the best properties and the best places to, to the TV guys and whatever, and blah 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 blah." And I would sit there, and I was like, one time I couldn't take it anymore. I said, "Do me a favor. I want you to take a look at yourself real quick. Tell me what's the difference between you and me right now." And the guy would look, and he couldn't figure it out. And I'd be like, "You're sitting there, we're in the lodge, and we're eating dinner. You're in your rubber boots, and you're in your camouflage that you're hunting with. What am I wearing? I'm wearing jeans, t-shirt, sneakers. Because you're going to go hunting with that tomorrow, and you're going to smell like, the pork chops and, and grits that we're about to get fed right now. And you're hanging out and you're smoking a cigar." And I'm like, "That's why you're not seeing deer. It has nothing to do." And I said, "We're out there, we're picking our own stand sites. It's not like they hung a tree stand for me. They hand me a map and said, here's the property." I said, "Show me where your tree stand's at. Show me on the map." And, they'll point out a big spot in it's a giant tract of woods. And you're like, "Well, where's the funnel? Where's the corridor? Where's what are you doing to, maximize your chances of a deer walking past you?" I don't know. Well, that's why you're not seeing deer. There's a lot there. It would crack me up. And a lot of times I just bit my lip, but I try not to make guys feel stupid and small, and I always try to just help people out. But when you're being a jerk, you're gonna get the pointy end. So, but
and one thing I learned early on hunting elk, you eliminate the places they aren't, and and you can do that with maps. And I love how you said that terrain and everything, because you can figure out, you've got one day in the woods, you can figure out, okay, where's this? You take the sign and the wind, terrain, you throw it all in and say, okay, here's where the deer should be.
mm-hmm.
And then you eliminate everything else. Yes, they might bust through. They might come get chased by a coyote, or, who knows? They could be in another area, but just briefly. And just think of your house. I think that's the best way. The woods are their house, so they need food, cover, and water.
Mm-hmm.
And then when the rut happens, they're going to look for the hottest girl in the neighborhood, and the baddest guy's going to find her. So that kind of shakes up the bushes, but it really doesn't, because he's going to be where the does are. So forget about the bucks. Go find the does, and then strategically set yourself up.
Oh yeah.
And then and then stay there all day.
Yeah.
And just hunt it. But so many times, and folks, John gave me some good information. Our success is all on us. It's really not the deer.
Yep.
I'd say 90% is us. The deer are there, or you wouldn't be hunting there. And now it's, you just gotta close the deal. And if you do it right, your percentages will go up. John, your thoughts?
Oh yeah, no, I agree with you. Absolutely. Yeah, it's just I always tell people success is in the details. You pay attention to all the details, dot your I's, cross your T's. So there's so much stuff in hunting that you can't control. So control everything that you can possibly control, and then your success is going to go up. Simple as that.
The only thing I add, that you have to hunt where mature bucks are if you want to kill a mature buck.
Yeah, but knowing where to find them and all that stuff is another thing. So, and that's where learning about deer and taking the time to find out the nuances and details of deer behavior and why they use terrain the way they use it, why they feed when they feed that time of year, and then breeding and all that stuff. It's all. Arm yourself with as much knowledge as possible and really pay attention to the details.
So let's switch it up. In your bio, you had an Ibex. Was that in New Mexico? Where'd you get that?
Yes, that's a Florida Mountains Ibex in New Mexico. Geez, sorry about that. Um, the It's the only place in North America that with free ranging ibex, and they're pure blood. They were gifted to New Mexico. I think it was like 20 breeding pairs or something like that, and now the population has exploded since that time, and it's an excellent hunt. It's deemed as the hardest hunt in North America. So, for a long time, it was less than 2% success rate with a bow in the October season, and hover right around 5 in the January season. But it's popped up a couple points since then. I think it's like 3.5 to 5% now in the early season, and closer to 7 in the January season, just because of the popularity, and people are going way more prepared, I think, for it, because it's a super physical hunt, and requires a lot of determination.
Now, you took yours with a bow.
I did.
Now, is there archery season and a rifle season, or are they congruent?
No, there's a rifle season, a muzzleloader season, and 2 archery seasons.
Both in October and in January?
I'm not really sure when the muzzleloader and the rifle season are, because I've never hunted them and I don't pay much attention to it. But I want to say they're November and December, I believe, because first archery is in October, and then the second archery is in January, and I believe the 2 rifle seasons fall in between. But I might be wrong. Honestly, I don't pay attention.
What's the rut period for them?
The rut period, I believe, is right around when the muzzleloader season is going. So I want to say it's like sometime in November. It's not something I always put in for the October hunt. I've been twice, and I've helped out on like 3 different other hunts. And being in the rut doesn't help your chances any, other than seeing more bigger billies. But they don't get stupid or anything like that, like deer and elk do, or antelope do. They doesn't make them any easier to hunt, I think, in the rut, from what I understand. So again, it's not something I put a lot of weight onto, trying to figure them out. They're not terribly difficult to find, because there's a lot of them. If you know how to glass, and you have good optics, it's pretty easy to find. It's just getting close enough to kill them with a bow. I don't think it would be a very terribly difficult hunt for a guy who is in good shape to kill with a rifle. I believe the rifle hunts are almost like 100% success rate. So to give you an idea, it goes from single digits to almost 100%. As long as you could shoot a few hundred yards. I don't feel that they're terribly difficult to get within 300-400 yards. I spent a lot of time 100 yards from Ibex wishing I had a rifle. And it's just getting into bow range is really difficult on them. They're super spooky, super athletic, and they're usually in big groups. A lot of eyes to fool. So,
but you got it done.
I did. I almost got it done a second time too.
You got her done. So, just Western hunting, and I've been telling my friends in Wisconsin, long range scouting could be a really good friend in Wisconsin. Now it's mandatory on this Ibex hunt. You got to have good optics, and you got to have a team that's spotting, because you can't, 10 hours a day just trying to find them up in the crags and up in the cliffs and in the terrain. They're difficult to find because they blend in, right?
Right. Well, I mean, could you do it by yourself? Absolutely. There's guys that do it by themselves all the time. Here's the thing, though. It's a game of numbers, so to speak. So the more stalks you get, eventually, hopefully they'll make a mistake and you'll do the right thing and you'll get one. When you're doing it by yourself, you spot something else, from down below, and you go up there and you make a 2-hour stalk, and it blows up on you. There's half the day right there. Get back down, and then going to look for another set. Not that you can't spot them from up top or spot them from across. It's doable. It makes it much, much, much more difficult if you're completely by yourself. So.
Thanks for that. Let's switch it up and talk about interviews with the masters on Podbeam. That's your podcast. Tell us about that.
Well, I started podcasting about 10 years ago before it was a cool thing to do. And we
was that a dig or what?
No. I just see there's a lot of podcasts coming up in the last year or so. I feel like everybody's got a podcast now. It's just I started doing it. We did it with just for the Hunting Channel members, and I only did it once a month. It wasn't available to the public for public consumption. So about a year ago, I decided I had stopped doing it for the Hunting Channel for about 2 years when I was talked into it by several friends and fans and so on and so forth that wanted me to bring it back. So I brought it back to the public, and it's on Podbeam, iTunes. I mean, pretty much anywhere you can consume podcasts, you should be able to find interviews with the hunting masters. And we basically, the way I do it is I get a lot of questions shot at me all the time through my social media. And now on my new website, you'll be able to go there and enter questions and give suggestions of people that you want to have on. But I take these questions, I kind of put them in a bank. And these are questions that I've been getting for years and years and years. So I've got them piled up. And I find the guys that I feel are best suited to answer those questions within that niche. And I get them on and we ask those questions. So it's kind of like it's a almost completely educational podcast. You know, we try to keep it entertaining as well, but it's mostly educational. You learn about all types of hunting. Whitetail, to Ibex, anything in between. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell.
Well, thanks for that. And I just started doing, I started a month ago. I asked my listeners, I said, okay, we got 6 months before hunting season. What do you want to know that you haven't found an answer for about whitetail hunting?
Mm-hmm.
And, every day I get a new one, and I'm going to compile them, basically what you did, and then I'm going to match them with shows I already have. And then I'll get Todd Prigness with Wicked Tree. He's got some really good techniques for hunting Iowa whitetails. And then Dan Johnson with Nine Finger Chronicles. He's got some really good ideas. And Garrett Rowe with Heads Up Decoy, blah, it just goes on and on. Because everybody brings something different to the show. So when you think about that, the more we can help you, the listener, get better at what you're doing, then that's going to help overall hunting.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to help my podcast, your podcast, grow. But John and myself, we're into helping people get better at what they do.
Absolutely. Yeah. We appreciate you for doing that. I obviously don't know everything. That's the other reason why I like to do my podcast, is because I learn a lot of stuff that improves my own hunting from these guys that are, better at me at that specific species and that specific area and that specific tile. Anybody who thinks they know everything is not gonna be very successful.
I won't use the S word, but we'll move on from that. Thank you very much. Well, I hate to say this. We've gone an hour, and I think this is a great segue into giving some shout outs. I know you've done wrote some work with Tom Miranda. You're a big fan of QDMA. You're a certified deer steward. Why don't you tell the folks just about what that is? Because some of our listeners should start embracing QDMA in their certified deer steward program.
Yeah, if you're serious about managing your property, it's definitely a course. They have a Steward 1 and Steward 2. You just contact QDMA and they'll be able to give you the details on that. But it's I think imperative for somebody who really wants to be able to manage their property and manage their deer effectively. So,
and you just go to qdma.com and or look up Kip Adams, Lindsey Thomas, Brian. What's Brian's last name? The executive director.
Oh, I can't think of his name right now.
Yeah. Anyway, just look up Brian. He runs the thing. But if you're serious about it, go to the people that already have the tools. You don't have to relearn anything. They're not selling anything. They're an educational research, heavy in the analysis and what it takes to grow a good deer herd.
Yep.
That's what QDMA does better than anybody in the thing. So with that being said, give some shout outs and then we're going to call it a show, John.
Well, I guess if you guys are interested in finding out more about me, I have my blog on WordPress. I do a lot of articles on there. You can check out my YouTube channel that we talked about earlier, or catch me on Facebook, John Stallone, or my Instagram at John Stallone. Yeah, pretty much from there, they're hubs for everything else I'm doing. I have my hands in so many things. I could sit here for another 10, 15 minutes telling you where to go. But so, yeah, those are probably the best places, YouTube and, of course, my podcast, which we talked about already. So,
on behalf of thousands of listeners who, when you listen to the show, again, I'm going to have to, when I edit it, I'm going to say, folks, just get a pencil and paper out because there's going to be some nuggets, shared by John. And if you're not listening for him, they're going to go right over your head. But John knows it. He lives it. He teaches it. He shares it. And it's just been a pleasure to have you as a guest on Whitetail Rendezvous.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Always fun to shoot the shits, so to speak, without hunting. So
you got that right.
I have to bleep that one out for me. All right, Bruce. Have a good one.
Hey, we got a great episode coming up. Why is it great? Because we got Jesse Paulson of Wilderness Athlete and Nick Lappy from Fit to Hunt.
Thanks for joining us. Be sure to tune in tomorrow for another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous, where you can listen and learn from the experts so you can be more successful on your next hunt. Until next time, listen, learn, and succeed.